Oh, look at that. We ready to go?
Yeah, I think so.
You said we're hot. All right, guys. Good evening. I'm 10 News Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins and Meteorologist Rick Kirby here.
Great.
8 p.m. update is out now on Hurricane Dorian, and not a whole lot of change.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. It's not changing. It's not moving. And this is really terrifying because over the Bahamas, I mean, they're just getting pounded relentlessly, and it's not moving.
Yeah, let's go show them right what we're talking about. Let's get to the numbers right now. 8 p.m. numbers came in. It is stationary. Winds are 140 miles per hour. That has come down from 145 the last hour, and gusts have come way down to 170. They were up at 220. Pressure is up a millibar. So pressure going up means it's weakening a little bit, and obviously winds have come down with that as well too. The problem is, guys, it's still stationary. Now, for the last 4 hours, the updates have been stationary. It has been wobbling a little bit for the last 4 hours or so. In fact, if I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more for you so you can kind of get a very close eye on that eye. In fact, let's go right into Grand Bahama Island. This is a, what do we got here? 6-hour loop. Yep, the last 6 hours hasn't gone anywhere. So Freeport, basically in that western eye wall, southwestern eye wall. Sweeting Cay over on the other side, High Rock right there in the middle. I mean, guys, it's just unbelievable just to sit there as long as it has in that particular part of the storm because that has the highest winds. We saw a little bit of a jog earlier today to the north and the west. It was moving west across Marsh Harbor and then the eastern end of Grand Bahama yesterday afternoon and evening hours, and then you can see it actually did jog a little bit more to the north and the west when it started to slow down and basically stopped today. So that's the bad news. The good news is that it looks like it's going to start to make that turn here soon a little bit more. I mean, a small turn, you can see that.
Yeah, it's giving us those indications. So the confidence is still very high. It's going to make that turn. The question is really, Bobby, is how close to the coast will it be, you know, when it makes that turn? The closer it gets to the coast, the more likely you are to see those stronger winds, potentially hurricane force winds along the east coast. So that's what we're going to be watching and tracking very closely.
Yep. Okay, so now let's zoom out a little bit here. I want to show you the official track. Now, this came out at 5 o'clock tonight, so you may have seen this, but let's run by it one more time here. So by tomorrow afternoon, it's finally moving. And so that means really, especially by tomorrow morning, we're going to start to see this thing move. And then in the afternoon hours, it's east of Sebastian Inlet, and then east of Jacksonville by Wednesday afternoon. I mean, but guys, that's 24 hours later. I mean, that's a big span right there. So it's going to be moving up the coast of Florida for the next 36 hours or so. And then here we go. I see some folks are watching from the Cape, Deerfield Beach as well too. Hey Mel, how are you? Yeah, Teresa, it's not moving at all, exactly. Now, friends in Carolinas, from Charleston all the way up, but especially Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, that looks like the area that could get brushed with this. Technically, the center line for this actually stays just offshore. And I put the center line back in just because we were comparing it to models, but we don't really show the center line a lot because the storm may not go right exactly on that line. The center could go anywhere inside this cone here. So it could actually go on shore from Savannah to Charleston area or just stay further offshore. A lot of the modeling, and we'll show you coming up, it is right in this area right in here. Let me see if I can get an arrow for you. It is right in this area right in here. So it's right along where the center is anyways. That's what we're thinking, okay? So after that, then it starts to move up a little bit more towards the northeast. There's Cape Lookout, Morehead City, Atlantic Beach, right over Ocracoke and Hatteras. And then a little bit further out to sea, but there are some winds that are going to be back here in the Norfolk area as well too. And then as it goes further, you can see it's basically staying up off the Cape. So that's the path as of 8 o'clock tonight. Here are those forecast models that we're talking about. Now, yesterday at this time, we had 3 or 4 that were bringing it right up here over towards Daytona Beach, towards the Cape. And now we got nothing. This yellow line here, that's the H Wharf.
And that did bring in a landfall last night. Now it's not, so we're getting better consensus amongst the models.
Much better consensus, absolutely right, which is making us feel a little bit better. The highest winds for hurricane winds stay offshore, but they're 45 miles from the center. And so I went ahead and I measured this out for you. So you can see it's this is about 65 miles out. So hurricane force winds actually come out somewhere right in here. Okay, and then on the forecast, if it does take that particular track, it's almost 70 miles, about 60, 65 miles to the Cape. Cape Canaveral area. So in theory, hurricane forecast winds would still stay offshore. That means winds of 75 miles per hour or higher, but you're still looking here at the possibility of that. And what will happen is all these rain bands you see here, they will become more and more numerous, and inside those rain bands is where you're going to get the heaviest winds. So we've got some here now, just kind of clipping over into parts of Highlands County. In fact, Highlands County is going to get a little bit of that. Let's go. In fact, we'll take you right in there right now because this is part of our viewing area. I'm not sure where you're watching from tonight, but our viewing area is Tampa and includes Lake Wales, Avon Park, and Lake Placid area. So you're going to have to watch these showers because this is going to be continuing tonight and through the day tomorrow, kind of on and off rain. They move quickly, but they can put down some heavy rainfall. So I'm thinking good 2 to 3 inches of rainfall at least. Some areas may get a little bit more than that just because you're in the outer rain bands versus if you look back towards Tampa and Sarasota and St. Pete, I mean, we get the afternoon showers and storms in this flow, and that's about it. Then they die off and we get only an isolated shower overnight. So here we've been looking at some numbers for winds, and it's not terrible. I mean, especially South Florida, it shouldn't be that bad. But notice as you move up the coast a little bit, they have picked up. And just in the last half hour to hour, we haven't seen as much. Generally, the gusts from Melbourne down to Vero Beach have been around 30, 31 miles per hour today for the gusts. Sustained winds, though, in the teens, guys. I mean, it's not terrible. That will go up. I do think we could see sustained winds well into the 30s there. Whether they actually get up to 39 or above, which is tropical storm force winds, that would be the best timing for that. You got this? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So top gusts I see here, Bobby, like West Palm Beach, they had a 36 mile per hour gust this evening. Right. So yeah, it's been the wind hasn't been super crazy yet there, and the storm's not making any westward or northwestward progress here over the past 4 hours.
So yeah, so now we're looking at tropical storm watches, warnings, all that stuff. So basically you see in the bright pink there, those are hurricane warnings from basically Jacksonville southwards, just south of Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra, down through Jupiter just about. All right, that's where we have the hurricane warnings. And that means we expect hurricane force conditions there, and that's going to be right along the immediate coast at the beach. Does that verify? I mean, it certainly can. It's going to be close, that's for sure. And that's hence the warnings. Now you see the 2 yellow counties there. Those are actually Polk and Highlands, or at least 2 of those are. And here's my forecast for that. I mean, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds with gusts to 40. And rainfall 2 to 3 inches. Now the rainfall we're going to have to watch because that can change quickly depending on how these outer rain bands line up. But wind-wise, this is a small storm.
Yeah, so for that wind to go up, if you're concerned about that, if you're there, you're going to watch the track of that storm. If it's closer to the coast, we see the stronger parts of the wind push inland a little more. So that's right. What it would take for you to see stronger winds. Otherwise, I mean, for that part of our viewing area, I mean, a 40 mile per hour wind's nothing to sneeze at. It's going to get your attention, but right. The severe winds should stay just to their east with this forecast. Yeah,
and I don't think it's going to be a major issue for those areas, but I think it's going to be kind of a breezy, windy day at times, and those just heavy downpours swinging through. That's the main thing. Now, tornado threat is very small because that's generally north and east of the center. Now, storm surge, obviously right along the coast, but it's now extending up into Georgia and South Carolina, at least for watches. Southern Georgia does have a storm surge warning. 4 to 7 foot of storm surge is possible all the way down to just about to Jupiter. South of there, it's only 2 to 4 foot. And in fact, once it gets going tomorrow, the winds are going to turn around offshore. So any storm surge we're going to see south of Jupiter is really going to be happening tonight and the first half of tomorrow. And then things will change up a little bit. Here's our local forecast model. And this will kind of give you an idea of the waves of rain coming through. And you can see by 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning, tonight, right? A little bit of a break, and then another wave comes through. That's 7 in the morning. Comes another wave for Highlands and Polk County, mainly Highlands County. But that's why I'm concerned that it could be a little bit more than 3 inches of rain there. If that continues, and I do think it'll be kind of on and off. Now, as we move through the afternoon hours, that rain spreads out. We heat up. We develop our... Look, if we had a northeast wind and it was this hot and this humid, in the afternoon we would get showers and storms. That's what we're getting
without
tomorrow.
A hurricane.
Without a hurricane,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's what we've had the last several days because we've had the northeast flow, including today. That's what we'll have tomorrow, plus you mix in a rain band or two that'll be spreading out from it. So that's right, we have about a 70% chance for rain for tomorrow, all the way back to Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, everybody that's watching from the Tampa Bay area. This is tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Look where the center is. It's finally moving off of the island, Grand Bahama, and it's now east of Fort Pierce, east-northeast of Fort Pierce. By tomorrow night, this time, it's just about east of Cocoa Beach.
So pause that, Bobby, right there. And you're seeing the wind flow here batter the shore. So what's happening? Is this where we're starting to see that potential storm surge of 4 to 7 feet?
Yeah, so this is the area where we're going to get the best storm surge. The closer this eye is, these winds here are to land, the best you're going to get. Now, what's happening is, I'm going to go back a little bit here. So let's go back to tomorrow morning. So notice this area right in here. Nope, can't do that. How's that work? Let me do this real fast and I can do it. So the winds are coming around like this, right? They're already blowing on shore up here. So that's already raising water up here in the Daytona area, down towards even Merritt Island. Well, not Merritt Island, but even down towards Cocoa Beach. But as the day goes on tomorrow, this is the midday, those winds will get harder and harder, and that just starts to push more water. The closer we get to this, all of this that's sitting right in here, that's where the highest wind's going to be. And whoever gets close enough to that is who's going to see the best storm surge. And you can see it's obviously moving to the northwest as we go through the day. That's tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. Then you've got tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. So that's going to be the best time to see surge for Daytona. Well, overnight tomorrow night. And then, of course, Cape Canaveral at that time as well, too. Now, look over on the west coast, guys. I mean, nothing, right? And not a lot of wind either. So, obviously, not our storm at this particular point. The only concern is we're just watching this area right in here to see how much rain we get right in there. And everybody else is going to get a chance of rain in the afternoon. But look, this is Wednesday morning. That's dry air coming in, all right? So that's going to cut off the rain chances. Some of that dry air is actually going to get entrained into the storm as well, too. And there's a little bit of southwesterly shear over top of all that that's happening. I know I'm drawing a lot there. But the bottom line is the forecast continues to degrade the storm and lower the winds as it moves from here all the way up to here. Okay, so that's going to be happening over the next 24 to 48 hours. In fact, it looks like it's going to stay that way as it goes up towards Jacksonville. So there we go into Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. I mean, a little bit of rain at, I think we have about a 20% chance, 30% chance on Wednesday.
Yeah, it really starts to get low to finish out the week.
Yeah, if anything. And then Thursday and Friday, that's Wednesday night, nice and dry. Then we get out to Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. See, a Thursday afternoon just has a couple showers coming in off the water.
Typical Thursday.
As we heat up.
Yeah.
This is just warm, moist flow, heating up here. You pop off showers and you bring them inland. And that's what we're thinking of. So literally for Tampa and St. Pete, I think I went 20%. Oh, no, Thursday, Friday, I took the rain chance out. Very, very small rain chance. So that's not it. There's more.
Yeah.
So we have this system here, which looks like it's going to come up and out. This one as well, you can see we think that's coming up and out. And then we've got this one, which is coming over, going over towards Mexico. So 3 systems out there right now, other than Dorian, that we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and you may see a couple of systems, 2 of them get named, but don't be alarmed about those because you see the expected movement.
Do I have the names in here? Yeah, Fernand and Gabrielle are the next 2 names up on the list. And at least one of them, the one out in the open Atlantic, I think has the best chance of getting named. The one that's back in the western Gulf of Mexico, that still is pretty close now, getting to Mexico there. So that's going to be tougher to form before they can name it. It's not looking so good tonight. So there we go. So let's go start answering some questions while we got you on here. Do you think it'll get near Tallahassee? I'm in Madison, Florida. Nope, Mary. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but none of these are going to get towards Tallahassee. So you don't have to worry about that. Tallahassee is fine. Let's see what else. Any thoughts on the wharf model and how the western high pressure system might affect Dorian's speed from stationary to moving again? Great question. Mm-hmm. Great question. Yeah. Let me see if I've got. I don't have the wharf pulled up on here, but I think I have the GFS I can show you here.
Well, while you look for those, I mean, we'll tell you about that. That wharf model, has moved east with the rest of the model. So, 24 hours ago it was bringing a possible landfall on Florida, but now it doesn't do that. It's in line with the other models, keeping the eye just offshore. So you know, it runs up the coast into South Carolina, North Carolina, paralleling that coast really closely. So, you know, that's that model consensus we talked about. Now it's there with the Euro, it's there with the GFS, helping give us confidence that this thing is likely to stay off the coast. It's at least the eye of the storm and the strongest winds.
Yeah, so I haven't updated this graphic. The trough is actually sitting in here. It's not this black line here, okay? So there's a trough sitting right in here, and there's a secondary trough coming in back in here. This first one, this is tomorrow at 4 a.m., right, late tonight. This first one is what's going to help this thing start to turn, all right? It's kind of waiting. It's been sitting there waiting for that. Then, as it starts to turn a little bit, here comes the second trough. That's the turn that does this. So this first trough that's now out here, it's the one that actually gets it to start moving again and move to the north. Secondary trough is the one that's going to get it to turn and parallel the coast and go on out. So there's a high building back over here. It's going to try and push it back a little bit. But the thinking is, watch this as I put it into motion, that high doesn't really build back west enough to force it into the Carolinas. It's trying. That's why North Carolina looks suspicious at this particular point. Because if you see by the time, you know, this high is sitting here. It started over here. All right, so it's backing up to the west. But so now it's all the timing. The longer, though, I'll tell you that, the longer that thing sits right here, the more this high can build and build back towards the west.
Push it toward the coast, perhaps, huh?
So I don't think that happens in here, okay? I think that is more of a threat for the Wilmington and coastal Carolina area.
And they already got geography against them. They're just sticking out so much, so.
So that's tomorrow night. And then watch what happens during the day on Wednesday. You're watching this, and you're watching that. So you see how this is built over here, and then you've got the storm right there just off Cape Fear, Wilmington, North Carolina, and then skirting over the Outer Banks. So I definitely, you know, part of what's pulling this thing here is the trough. So you've got this trough sitting here, and that's pulling this up, and you've got this high pressure here pushing this. So both of those kind of argue for a little bit closer call towards the Carolina coastline. All right, let's go back to the satellite loop. Where are we looking at questions? All right, guys, I'm trying to get some questions for you here. What will Lakeland get? I'm in a mobile home, North Lakeland. Pamela, you're going to be fine in Lakeland. You don't need to worry about it. Tropical storm watches are to your east. You're in a tropical storm watch, but I think the winds are going to be fine. If it was a warning, you know, we expected those high winds, then you'd be asked to leave. Even in a tropical storm, you don't want to stay in a mobile home, but you should be fine in Lakeland in a mobile home.
I'll tell you what, Bobby, while you look for some questions, I'll show everybody some video we have coming out of the Bahamas from the storm over the last 24 hours. And I mean, here you get an idea of what that wind is like. I'm not sure what the winds were at this point in this particular clip here, but this kind of scene has been just over and over for hours and days now. And boy, the Grand Bahama Island has been completely inundated with this storm from east to west, and now it's just sitting there almost in the middle, just continuing to pound this area with winds of 100 plus. You know, gusts at times have been 200 miles per hour or so, and you know, we've just had so many reports of damage and cars flipped and tossed, and crazy storm surges and flooding, and folks climbing into their attics to escape the rising water. It's been unreal.
Yeah, I mean, you know, unfortunately, we're not going to know much at all. It's going to be, you know, what we're hearing right now is it's just basically a rescue and recovery operation right now. I mean, they're just trying to get people to safety right now, but they're still in the middle of the storm out there. So I see Angela Bella's comments here, and I want to show her what's going on, why it stopped. First of all, the forecast called, can you put this back up,
sure,
for it to stop, okay? I got a lot of questions today at work. Why is it stalling? Well, we were expecting it to stall because of the high pressure that's to the north. and it's starting to weaken. So you see, we basically have this trough setting in here, and there's a high right in here. All right, that high came from here to here. This is trying to go, the storm is trying to go north, okay? It's trying to go north. It can't go north into a high pressure. So it was coming up here like this. It sensed the high pressure, which was building here. So it came underneath. The high pressure ends up moving out over here a little bit, and so now it's starting to turn. It's trying to find a weakness up here. There's actually a little bit of a ridge building here, and you can see the trough here. This ridge is what's holding it up, okay? That's why it can't go further to the west, or at least it can, and that's the thing. It's just further to the west that it's going to allow it to if it wanted to, but it's being pulled at the same time to the north. And so there's nothing really blowing on it. If you look at all these clouds here, see all this green here? It's pretty good outflow all the way around. There's no shear blowing like this yet. There is going to be some. There's nothing really coming in from this way, and there's nothing coming in from this way. There's nothing blowing this and steering this in any direction. And in fact, that's why the forecast was calling for it to, I don't want to say explode, but for it to strengthen like it did, because it was going to get into this area, which was basically right in here, where there was very light steering currents, very light winds.
Plenty of moisture.
Plenty of moisture and no shear. And the only thing that was steering it in this direction at that time was this high pressure that was sitting. It was moving into the area. And now that it's backing away, it's less pressure being put on this to push it. And so it just stopped. And the models definitely forecasted to slow down. But they were forecasting initially like something like this. We had some that were coming straight across. I mean, now we show you sometimes individual models. We don't like to do that because people say, well, what's going to come straight across? Not all the models had it going straight across. But then over the weekend, the models really started this curve up. And that's because they noticed this weakening a little bit and this trough coming in. So that's why. That's why it's sitting there. It just has nothing really to push it anyway.
So now you ask, why do you think it's going to go north? Well, remember, high pressure was keeping that from happening. And now, because high pressure is starting to move east and have less of an influence, the storm is trying to go north now instead of west, and that's why it stopped. And that's what we're waiting for, that that influence to continue to weaken, and then the storm's going to start moving again in a north direction, northwesterly direction, eventually north and northeast.
Right, and it's almost being pulled more than anything else. So there's just not a lot on it right now.
Because remember, all hurricanes want to go north.
Yeah,
they want to go toward the poles.
Yeah, there's just not a lot on it right now, but that's the reason right there. And we do, and in fact, let me finish this. Let this save up here. I want to move it to the north and west. You can see the other troughs coming. We got a big ridge out west, and that's basically just going to sit there. And then here comes the trough. That's the first one. Remember, first one coming through, and that's the one that helps pull it this way. Second one is going to be sitting up here, and that's going to come through just like this one, and that's going to be the one that helps take it out like that, or take it out this way. Okay, so that's the steering. This is just getting here. So the reason why we think that this storm starts to go northwest tomorrow is because this trough is getting closer to it. All right, so it's waiting, and there's nothing behind it pushing it. There's nothing really going on there.
Now, and for some people asking, well, could it not turn north? Could it come west into the state? You know, we look at our model data and stuff too. The probability now of hurricane force winds in Tampa has gone from 1% and 2% to 0 today. The models are actually saying 0.
Right.
Again, just giving us confidence. We're seeing that model consensus.
I mean, look at all these models. Look how grouped they are.
Right.
See that? They're all in that area.
So the science we look at that Bobby just explained to you, the models just prove that theory and give us confidence that we're on the right forecast here, and we think this will verify.
JS is Polk County in the clear. Well, Polk County is in a tropical storm watch area, which means you could see tropical storm force winds. Doesn't mean you're going to. That would be a warning if it was. Again, I'm thinking you're getting 15 to 25 mile per hour winds with gusts in the 30s. Perhaps a gust of 40 in some of these stronger rain bands that come through. But I mean, shoot, you got a thunderstorm in the summertime, you know. When all this is said and gone, we'll get some afternoon thunderstorms. Are going to get more wind than what you're going to get, but it will be a steady breeze for sure in especially Polk and Highlands County, especially the eastern part of the county. The storm is just not that big. The wind field with this storm is just not that big. I mean, that's the issue. I mean, it looks scary. It is scary right there near the center, But it's not like what I guess a lot of people would think of as, you've got winds all the way out here. I mean, you have some, but literally, what was it? Was a hurricane's like 45 miles out, so hurricane force winds, are somewhere in here, and that's it. They actually extend a little bit out here, but you can see all this distance between land and here, and that's it. That's the main area to be concerned about.
Yeah, and that puts a lot of pressure on the forecast, because if that eye, is forecasted to stay 60 miles off the coast, and that's off by 20 miles, just 20 miles, all of a sudden you got hurricane force winds right on the beaches. So
Alexander says he's so nice. Coming from one ear out the other. Just have to see what happens. Yep, do have to just see what happens. That's right. How is Savannah looking? Citrus is in the clear. Jennifer, Citrus is in the clear. Savannah, you have to watch it. You're a little bit inland, but you're going to get some wind. You're going to get some water on the coast there. Storm surge warning, just about up to where Savannah is. It's a little bit south of you. You're in the watch right now, but it's going to be close. I do think, obviously, tides will be running higher for that area.
Bobby, Jessica says models have been wrong before.
Sure have been.
But
absolutely right.
Absolutely, but
Jessica, a lot of people, I got to say, a lot of people want this to turn into Florida. I don't get it. I've seen more comments in the last couple days that nobody knows what it's going to do, and it's coming to Florida.
Like they're disappointed.
They're disappointed that it's not coming to Florida.
This is great news, guys. The models could be wrong, but again, when you have model consensus, all these models are agreeing, update after update, we start to get more confident in this forecast. Believe me, if we saw models all over the place, our confidence would be lower, and we'd be telling you that right now. So,
Mandy says the winds aren't that big. Tell that to the people in the Bahamas. Mandy, I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying. The wind field is not that big.
The size of how far out
I'm drawing the wind field in relation to, especially to Florida. That's what we're talking about.
And it's one of the smaller hurricanes in the history of hurricanes as far as the size of that wind field. Where the wind is, it's incredible. It ties for the most powerful landfalling Atlantic hurricane ever. So that wind is historic. Yeah, but the size of how far that wind reaches out, it's very tiny. Which really, you think about that's a good thing, right? You wouldn't want this kind of wind extended out, 200 miles or.
Yep. All right. Let's see if we get any more questions here. Billy says there are big swells at Cape Lookout. Yeah, well, surf's definitely building. I mean, you've got out here, you've got your southeast winds, and that's going to push swell towards the coast. So yeah, the winds will start to push on shore though, like locally, so that it's not going to be as clean surf-wise in the Carolinas, but definitely going to get some surf before the wind gets there. That's been sitting there for so long, it's just making waves. So yeah, definitely going to get some surf up there. Kannapolis, North Carolina, John, that should be fine. Islands along the NC coast. Donna, you can see right there. There's the NC coast, and there's the track of the center with about Category 2 hurricane winds. So you're talking about 120 mile per hour winds. I'm lived in Wrightsville Beach forever, North Carolina. I told friends there I wouldn't be surprised if they evacuate the island just because of the current forecast track. Storm surge, 3 to 6 feet maybe could be possible. It's a little early right now to tell what happens. But definitely there's going to be some issues along the Carolina coast if it comes anywhere close to where they're saying right now.
Bobby, what's that magic number on storm surge where you get concerned for interest along the coast?
Oh, it depends. I mean, 4 to 6 feet, 4 to 7 feet on the East Coast. If you had that on the west coast of Florida, you'd put Clearwater Beach halfway underwater.
Because it's so flat.
It's flat and it's flatter. Yeah, the beach itself doesn't have much elevation versus over on the East Coast. Not only is the land a little bit higher.
On most of the Florida East Coast, what's concerning there? What's
4 to 7's, that's decent. That's coming down the streets and some of the beach things. Yeah, that's messing up the dunes. So yeah, that's a big one.
What does St. Augustine, Joyce wants to know, what does St. Augustine west side of I-95 look like? And Joyce, that's going to depend a lot on where exactly that eye tracks, because where the eye goes, the strongest winds go. Remember, this is about 40, 45 miles of hurricane force winds from the center of that eye. So the closer the eye tracks to the coast, the stronger the winds are going to be along the coast and inland.
So Justin Williams has got a question. What I'm understanding is why, I don't know if that makes sense. What I'm understanding is why you keep referring to models as if they have anything to do with Mother Nature. Your confidence is coming from human input. Yeah, I kind of think I see what you're saying there, but that's just it. You know, we're putting all the data in there, and we're letting the models run. It's all computer-based, exactly. However, that's like saying, you know, why don't you just look at your app on your phone to tell you where the hurricane's going? You know what I mean? The forecast, that cone that you're seeing, that's a calculated thing by humans, right? That red line in the center there just happens to be where they think the center line's going to go. I would argue with you that the Hurricane Center is not even sure it's going to take that line. You know, that's just where the center line happens to be right now. But that's coming from humans. That's how you interpret the data. You think about history, you think about what you've seen, how these high pressures are here and where they're located, how deep the trough is that's coming in from the north and the west. And then you think back in your history of forecasting, and you kind of, you know, go down to what you think that's going to do. So
yeah, well,
that's all forecasting is.
The Hurricane Center's so unsure, Bobby, that they invented the cone of uncertainty, right, based on that historical error. So, but the confidence is pretty high it will fall somewhere inside that cone, and that's where it's useful, and that's where it's very important.
Kathy, no problem. I hope you have a great night. Thank you for the nice comment. Andrate, is this live? Yes. Yes, it is.
You know how we know? Because Bobby dropped his mic earlier, and folks were commenting on somebody dropped their mic.
Oh, did I? Yeah, when I sneezed. Pulled it off just perfectly for sneezing.
So it's live, man. This is live.
Brittany wants to know, can it strengthen? It can, but I don't see that happening, Brittany. One of the things with it sitting stationary is a process called upwelling. So the storms need warm water, 80+ degree water, and they need it to be deep too, because when the winds blow as hard as they're blowing right now over the Bahamas, it takes the top water, blows it away, and the upwelling is when that top water blows away and the water underneath, a little bit deeper down, comes up to replace that top water that's being blown away. This particular area in the Bahamas does have warm water pretty deep, and that's another reason why we expected it to get strong as it was approaching Great Abaco and Grand Bahama like it did. However, sitting here that long with that much wind, it's going to be losing some of those ocean temperatures that we need, that it needs to really be a strong system. And so gradual weakening is continuing. It's been happening all day today, and I expect it to continue now as it starts to move up. It is moving really close now to the Gulf Stream, and that's kind of a constant feed of water, about 85, 86 degrees. And it kind of parallels that line that they have actually from the Hurricane Center forecast. So all the forecasting now is suggesting that it weakens. You know, the logic suggests that it weakens a little bit as well too. And then once the turn starts, it'll start out slow and then pick up a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of southerly shear on the backside, and that should help keep it at bay as well too, or you know, we just keep it not strengthening, let's put it that way.
Here's some video, guys, again from the Bahamas you can look at while we go through some of your questions. Bobby Richard wants to know what model is the most reliable, because they do hear us talk these days about a lot of models that we probably didn't talk about in the past. And with the hurricanes, I mean, we show the GFS, we show the Euro a lot, and you'll hear us talk about the hurricane model, the HWRF. I guess those are probably the three we lean on the most for hurricanes.
Yes, you know, GFS, European, the HWRF, the NAM. You know, you kind of, each model has a little bit of a bias of its own, and so whenever you look at that, you kind of take that into account. You know what I mean? Especially the GFS. Although the GFS is, they upgraded that at the beginning of the year, and so it's done a little bit better. I saw a great question here. You said Angela said, you said the wind field was small. Could it get larger with a prolonged stationary period? Yes, it could a little bit. What happens when storms, especially when they make landfall, but when they weaken, the wind field tends to spread out a little bit. So the overall highest winds will come down. But say you have, right now we have hurricane force winds out 45 miles and the tropical storm force winds go out about 140. As it starts to weaken, if it were to get really close to land and be affected by that, as those storms weaken, they spread out a little bit. And so mainly in your tropical storm force zone, you'd see those go from 140 miles maybe out to 160, 180, something like that. So yes, the wind field could get a little bit larger. It would not get stronger near the center. because the reason why it's getting larger is the system's weakening a little bit.
And that's when you might be more likely to get 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts in like eastern Polk County. As that thing spreads out, we see that come a little more inland than it might otherwise.
Catherine, no problem. I hope you are safe and doing good. Yeah, we've been waiting on a turn for days. I hear you, Rose. When's this going to happen? The turn's going to happen. Well, you know, it happened a little bit today. We were kind of excited to see that this afternoon. There we go. Let me zoom in real tight here for you. I want to show you what happens is when it's sitting over land like that, you get 1 hour fixes. And so I'll get in even tighter, and you can see what the Hurricane Center had. It kind of steps. You see these steps that it has here? It kind of did something. Let me get this right here. Just kind of up and over and up and over. And it's just kind of wobbling. I mean, if you look at it right now, the latest one looks like it's come down a little bit, maybe over to here, but that's pretty much the ballpark of where it is.
And that's what it did, that blue line. The red is the forecast line, but so it actually wobbled around like that and started giving us that hint it was moving to the northwest, and then it just stalled out, and that's where it's been for the last now 5 hours, Bobby. The 9 o'clock is in.
Yep, there it is.
Still stationary.
140 mile per hour winds, still stationary, pressure's the same.
That's now 5 hours, guys, just sitting there in this exact location. And you can see right there at Grand Bahama Island, you see Freeport there. They're just getting these same winds over and over and over. And remember, this thing started affecting this island last night.
Yeah. Yesterday afternoon.
It's been
and then last night moving into Grand Bahama.
Yeah, so Grand Bahama Island has seen these winds going for over 24 hours now.
Ruth says, looks like all of Florida just going to get thunderstorms. Well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, that's how we're describing it before. I mean, you can see the rain bands here. These are rain bands and wrapping around. And then what you get over here is basically the heating of the day with a northeast flow. And that's what we had from earlier today, the storms that kind of pushed down through the Tampa area. Now, Polk County, Highlands County, let me clear all that out. These rain bands in here are where we'll see on and off showers and storms that are considered rain bands. And I think some of these will actually rotate all the way through the Tampa area. But by far, most of them are going to be, the most rain is going to be sitting down in here. And I don't think it's going to be terrible in most locations. Most of it's going to be right along the immediate coast as far as rainfall goes. Kathleen's in Newport Richie. She says, thank you. You're very welcome, Kathleen. Hope you're doing well. Pretty nice night in Newport Richie out there, NPR. How can a prediction of direction when it's been stationary, Karen says? You must have just missed, we're looking at what could steer this, what we expect to steer it. High pressure to the east, a trough to the north, a little bit of higher pressures to the west, not much. We've got that tropical system in the western Gulf of Mexico. But that trough to the north should help push this a little further northward, and that's what we're thinking, and that's what most of the models are thinking if you look at the forecast models here.
Bobby, Brittany says, so is this all guessing because the storm has done way more than expected? Really, I wouldn't say the storm has done way more than expected other than the intensity of the storm. It's followed a pretty true path over the past week or so. But the intensity has gone off the charts. So none of this is guessing, guys.
Yeah, Pat says science today can only predict what a hurricane is going to do to a point. They are wrong as much as they are right. 50%, huh, Pat? All right, well then, I could say, I will tell you this. The hurricane forecasting, if you go back to the 90s, I think it was like the 5-day was like almost 400 miles off, or it could have been. Now it's 200 miles, and that's 5 days out. So that, as far as when forecasting hurricanes, the track forecasting has gotten better and better and better. Now, in the last 5 years, the track forecasting has kind of leveled off a little bit. It's not improving as much at a rate as it was improving when you go back to the 90s, the early 90s, through about 2013 or so. It was really getting better and better and better each year. And then just the last 4 or 5 years, that same rate of improvement has not been keeping up. But essentially, intensity forecasting is just not good. And that has not improved. It's gotten to a certain point, and it improves just a little bit, but we don't see that type of improvement that we see in track forecasting. And we had the forecast track. I posted on my Facebook page. It was from when was it? August 26th. It was just coming up past Puerto Rico, north of Puerto Rico at that point, and the 5-day forecast had it right where it is right now. It was a pretty cool pictured overlays. You go to my Facebook page, Bobby Deskins, and you'll see it there. You have to pan down a little bit, but actually kind of cool that it was like that. And you'll notice the Hurricane Center they don't jump around very much when they move the tracks. So you'll sit there and you'll be watching the models, and you'll be waiting for the next update, and you'll say, oh, they're going to shift it to the right because all the models are to the right now. Well, they may come a little bit to the right, but they're not going to make a big jump because they're looking at trends as well too, and those are big decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, and you don't want to be swinging those forecasts.
I mean, imagine when somebody was talking about, the human error or whatever, don't have humans do it. I mean, if humans weren't doing it, then you'd be following that line, and those lines are all over the place. When there's disagreement, and the forecast cone, I got to get that cone in here. Where is that? Hold on, guys. I've got an explainer that explains what the cone is and how it's used. And I think that really kind of helps because it explains the uncertainty when forecasting these.
Yeah, you look for that, Bobby. And once again, here's some video from the Bahamas. Some of this is from Abaco. Some of this is from the Grand Bahama Island. And it's just water everywhere, and it's going to take a while for this water to go down. They had storm surges up to 23 feet, and it caused just some incredible damage. We've had reports of deaths as well. Our first one last night was a 7-year-old boy who drowned actually in all of that water. So very scary there. The power's out and just all over the place. And the sad part is here we are. It's nighttime again, and this hurricane's still sitting there spinning. So they're going through another long night here.
Yeah, April asks, has the trough stalled? No, that's it's tough for that to happen because that's further up in latitude, and things move pretty quickly up there. If you're from like Chicago or the Northeast, you know how kind of storms can swing in first half of the day and then they're out, and the cooler air comes in the second half of the day. It's kind of moving a little bit quicker on that kind of scale, that kind of time scale. All right, so here's the little explainer I made for the hurricane forecast cone. So essentially, you see the little red dot there in the middle? That's where the Hurricane Center, this is just an example, thinks that the storm is going to be. The 1 is where it is, and then they say at 24 hours, we think it's going to be right there at that little red dot. At 48 hours from now, we think it's going to be there, 72, 96, and 120. And then what they do is they put these concentric circles over top of that dot, and that's what makes the cone. So you see how they're drawing lines from one side of the circle to the next circle to the next circle and all the way around? Those circles are based on forecasts over the last 5 years. So in 2017, they went back and they looked at the previous 5 years, and they said, how far off were we? In this example, I'm using day 3, but they do this for every day. They say, how far off were we on our day 3 forecast, 2011 through 2016? Turns out they were off, I didn't actually do the other number there, but they were off more than 103 miles. And so what they do is they take 2/3 of the error that they calculate, that they average, and then they make that the radius for the storm. Now, forecasting got a little bit better, as it usually does by 2018.
They take 2/3. It's almost optimistic that we're going to be better this time.
They're assuming that they're going to be better
right
next year. Yeah, it is optimistic thinking, absolutely. Well, look what happened. In 2018, they went back and they looked at the previous 5 years, including 2017, and it did. The average got better. They were closer on all days, but this particular one was day 3, right? So now that circle is smaller. And so what happens is when you apply that now to the cone, you see the old one in yellowish there, and then the new one for day 3 in the purple. So now when they go and they say, okay, day 3, we think the spot's going to be right here in the middle, they apply the purple circle and not the yellow, but the purple circle, and it shrinks the cone.
The cone is smaller, more accurate.
Right. All of that is based on forecast. Now, if you overlaid the models in this, yeah, they may fall into there, they may not, right? And then you may see the models eventually maybe turning sharper than what this particular one has. But that's what that cone is for. It has nothing to do with the winds and the rain inside the cone. All it has to do is with the location of the center of the storm. So in other words, what it's saying is, statistically speaking, over the last 5 years, when we put a forecast out for day 3, the center could fall anywhere in that cone. Top of the cone, side of the cone, bottom of the cone, anywhere. And same thing was you get, any of those days, days 4, days 5 as well too. So it has nothing to do with the effects of the storm, where the wind is or anything like that. And then sometimes I've heard people say, because it's like, it'll get fatter. Right. And I heard somebody say that's because of uncertainty. No, it could be a really slow moving storm.
Or they think the storm's going to grow into that size. At the end.
Yeah, that's what the people think, but that's not not correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just those concentric circles kind of stacked up over each other, because within 24 hours it's only going to move so far. So you got to put the 48 hours on top of it.
So with that said, guys, you would expect it to be bigger toward the end, right? Because that's farther in time. It's farther out. Of course, it's a tougher prediction. You're going to have more error, so it's bigger.
Justin says, I still think that there are way too many variables involved to trust on trends and computer models. Lots of variables for sure, Justin. I mean, what would you suggest? Well, if you have the model data available to you, and you've got live data, I mean, what you're looking at here is actual live radar data. So you can zoom right in. That's actual. It's like sticking your head out the window, right? That's the best thing to do. Right. That's the first thing we do when we forecast every day, even just on a normal day.
It's called nowcasting.
Nowcasting. Stick your head out the window, because you got lots of computers. You need to get off the computer and you need to look outside.
So the next thing is what's going to happen next. Where's it going to go? And that's when we start to look at what's happening in the atmosphere. It's a look test.
Right.
And then you start using models to calculate where things are going to move from one point to another on a map, and go out in time and continue to do that. So it's not perfect, but it's gotten so good that it's very useful information. And that's all we're trying to do, is give you information to plan on and to have at least a clue of the possibilities. And we give you a range of possibilities, and you see that in the cone. We think the eye is going to be somewhere in that forecasted cone, and statistically it will typically fall in there.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it. We're going to get off of here. What time is it now? It's getting kind of late.
All right, Bobby.
12 after. So, guys, thank you for joining in tonight. We appreciate everybody hanging out and chatting with us. So, really, I mean, we just kind of sit here and continue to watch it, right? We want to see that turn. Still thinking that will happen tomorrow. That trough's getting a little bit closer. So, the storm should certainly start to feel it early tomorrow morning and throughout the day. And that's what we think is going to help get this thing moving. So let's cross our fingers and hope that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, we get everybody's angst here. You're waiting for that storm to turn. What's your phrase?
Turn, baby, turn.
Baby, turn.
Yeah. It's now we just move, get off of Grand Bahama.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just incredible what's happening out there. Now, just like with Charlie, the highest winds that are causing the most damage are in a very small area out there, but that area has been right over Grand Bahama. I mean, literally from Freeport to Sweeting Cay on the eastern side of the island.
Yeah.
It's been right over top of it. So anyways, we'll keep you updated here. We'll keep watching it for you. Bottom line is we're going to get some waves of rain from time to time here in west central Florida. Polk County and Highlands County, obviously a little bit closer. You get a little bit more rain, a little bit more wind. We're not expecting a whole lot of severe weather. Best threat for tornadoes will stay offshore. I can't always rule that out. We watch for that. But the showers that will be coming through are actually moving pretty quickly. So not out of the woods yet. Just want to watch this. Once we start, the jog we saw today, we were feeling a little bit better. Like, okay, we were expecting it to slow down and maybe potentially stall, and then we wanted to kind of start moving out. The forecast, though, did call for this to not stall for this long. It actually started the other day, but to slow down or almost stall before it makes the turn. So it's done that. Now it needs to keep going.
Yeah.
Now it needs to get picked up. And just looking where the trough is now, we understand why it's still sitting there.
Right, and so if you're watching in Tampa Bay, you can definitely relax a lot more. The effects here are going to be almost zero, but on the East Coast, you have friends and family or interests there. We're going to be tracking this around the clock still. We have a team of meteorologists and other news people. I mean, getting you information literally as it happens around the clock. I mean, we're not going to stop till this thing is long out of here.
Yep. You can actually text if you're, and this will go for most of the
What's your
Tampa
number? I don't
area.
have your number.
Yeah.
Oh, not text.
Text.
We do have a great text setup.
727-945-6606. And if you text tropics to that number, TROPICS, you'll get a text back, and it's got a bunch of links. Most of those pertain to the well, the county information pertains to the Tampa area, but the other links are zoomable radar. You can zoom in on the storm. You can have the radar. You can put the loops. It's got all the spaghetti plots. It's got all that kind of stuff there, and it's a lot easier. Just bypass everything else. Just here's the text. You do it right from your text
on your phone,
and your messaging there.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Everybody have a safe night tonight. Think of your friends on the East Coast if you can help them out. If they do want to evacuate and come on over to the West Coast, give them a call. Tell them feel free to come on over and say, honest God, say some prayers for the Bahamas.
Yeah.
It is
tough night continues.
It's still going on right now. Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah.